Oh, hey there. Sorry, I didn't see you guys. I was driving my space car. Welcome to another AF Fantasy Team Reveal video. Let's just get into it. My team is finished. Is yours? Wow, that's crazy. I don't know what you said because I can't hear your thoughts. Anyways, let's get into this, shall we? I can't remember what I had last time I made a video, but what I do know is I prefer my face being on this side of the screen. Maybe a little smaller. Okay. I'm just gonna go through the team because I'm just making this video for historical reference and anyone who just, I don't know, needs yet another little bit of AFL fantasy content. Sam Doherty, no brainer still. The gap between him and the next defender is likely too large to really not pick him, you know? He goes 110, then possibly even 115, 120, then it's probably, like I said in my previous video, like a Dawson, Sicily, Sinclair, who's probably going 100 to 105. Lock him in. Next up, we got YEO, another no-brainer pick, I would imagine. Playing basically midfield and a little bit of defense. Priced at an average of negative 44, so he's got to be in your team. Otherwise, what game are you playing? Seriously. All that needs to be said. As you can see, the defense here is looking quite not expensive besides Doherty. Next up we have Will Day. He is a likely midfield candidate for the Hawks this year. He looks like he'll be having like 50% CBAs, which is 50% more than he's ever really had. I think even coming up against Essendon round 1, 100 on the 100 points on the cards here, I reckon, round 1, and then everyone will be like, oh, why'd I pick Will Day? And then he's gonna go a 30 and everyone will be like, oh, I knew I shouldn't have picked Will Day. But anyways, he's in the team. Good value. He's playing midfield. A good spreading game if there are +6s in the back line of the Hawks where it might be quite a lot to get picked up. He's got that sort of role or ability in his game, so yeah, I mean, we'll just see what happens with him. He's playing midfield. Just a decent value pick if it turns out to be the go that he goes well. Next we've got Jaden Hunt. I was largely on this guy the entire preseason, and I sort of came around again just as it's finished back to him. I dropped him after his game against the Crows in the preseason, and not really for any reason besides he didn't get like an 80. He had the role that I was looking for. He was scrounging up some of that sweet +6 action in the back line of the Eagles defense where things can go awry. Yeah, he was just running around. He's doing what a player I had last year did for the Eagles, and he's a better player and more game sense, so he could actually achieve higher scores and stay in the team longer than a guy that was known as Patrick Naish. He was a bit of a pod rookie for myself, and actually he was getting some 90s just running around the Eagles backline, just getting easy kicks and stuff. He's just his disposal efficiency and game was just not very good, so he got dropped after a while. But he made cash really quickly, and he was a very good initial player. And I think Jaden Hunt can be sort of similar. Staying in the team, I would say he's best 22. Pretty much locked in. Unless he plays really badly, whatever, you know, he's coming off he's been in a premiership winning team. I'm pretty sure he was in a premiership winning team. He was in the best 22 when the D's won. But anyways, he has early in his career scored well. Like, he's gone hundreds and stuff before becoming a really defensive winger for Melbourne. He might get back to that sort of 70 range. And coming up against North, he doesn't really have a better opportunity at the start of the year to generate cash. He might play a similar game to like Oscar Baker did and get a 90 or even a 120. Who knows? And if that happens, I'm rolling. I'm rolling in it. Anyways, there's Scraden Hunt locked in. D5, Charlie Constable. Most people have him questionable role security or position in the team security, but he looks the goods to start off. A few kick-ins here and there, plus sixes. You know the drill. You know the drill, guys. I'm sure you've heard Charlie Constable's name around the place. D6 Ruben Jinbi. Don't really need to say much about him. He looks elite. Going 100 in his first game, I think. Lock it in. And defense, rookie line, substitute line, sub line, bench line. That's the best word. Bench. Wilmot and Chesser, just depending on how things change. I don't have Lockie Cowan in my team. I don't think his role or job security is very good. Especially if Sin or Chinkota, whatever his name is, isn't named. I think Cowan's capable of like a 30-40 and then just dropped for Chinkota, who I think should be in the team above him anyways. I just don't. He's an inflated rookie. Maybe he goes well. I don't know. I don't really have confidence in him. We'll see if anything changes there. 26 can the bank, so I can't actually I can't get him in anyways. I think Chester's there. Round 1, he'll be named. Chance of the sub. But, yeah. A few rookies subject to change, but everything else, you know the drill. Now, in my midfield, I've gotten rid of Rory Laird just because I don't know, so many people have gotten on him. I have sort of left the station because, I don't know, it just seems like maybe he gets like a 110 getting tagged by Perryman and then you're just crying. He actually, like, his first few games, he doesn't have the greatest scores against last year, but again, he could go on 30, whatever. It's just he's a lot of cash. I would love to start him, but I think the sensible move is not starting him if you're looking at a strategy to win a hat or a car. Find value essentially everywhere. The only argument to have him as value is as a captain option every week, which is a double score, obviously, but who knows, maybe like you see here, Josh Kelly scores more than him in round 1 as my captain. He's probably my captain this week, as long as Doherty, I don't know, gets 105. Doherty probably goes 120, so I'll just loophole him with Max Heath on the bench there. So yeah, M2 Josh Kelly, capable of a 115 average if everything goes to plan. Just the only sort of doubt I have about him reaching like 110 again is the Giants' game plan, whether or not it's more direct and he can't really get a few more tackles and marks a game. I don't know though. It's just, how different is the Giants' game plan going to be? They just, I don't know. I don't see it really affecting him too much. Yeah, he should be one of those guys that goes from 100 to the top 8 midfielders, all things going well. So yeah, M3 Bontempelli is similar. honestly basically the same argument as Kelly. I don't really want to go these super expensive midfielders because, you know, we're chasing value. And Laird, I've talked about. Brayshaw probably gets tagged round 1 and falls in value, but again, he's someone that could pop after that. Oliver is just, I don't know, his first few games aren't like the best for his scoring. I've never really liked Oliver as a pick. I don't know why. I honestly don't think I've ever had him in my team the past like 3 or 4 years. I don't know why. I just, for every year I somehow don't have him. Anyways, Mills again, yeah, he's just not. Like all these, Mills still didn't really look like being able to explode his game to another level. He probably will even go backwards. Miller, no preseason action, you know. Merritt likely getting tagged. Neal, decent pick. Crouch, okay, but these guys are just like, they're topped out, I think. Bailey Smith again might just, it's questionable how many CBAs he'll attend. Whereas Bont is looking like the guy that will benefit from Dunkley not being there the most. Don't know why. As soon as I start recording, my nose gets incredibly itchy. Apologies. So yeah, I was looking at McCluggage recently. I think he's a decent pick. As a controversial opinion, he's the kind of guy that maybe can go 110 to 115 if everything goes well. Dunkley might unlock McCluggage's game, so he's a guy I'm watching early in the season. Anyways, M4, Connor Rosie, Ricky Rose as the real ones call him. Just playing predominantly midfield. Put him in my midfield as opposed to the forward line, just for some strategy I'm looking at in the forward line. I have had Cornelio here, and I've thought about fading Rosie just because he's got a few tough matchups to start the year, but he might just break out from those kind of semi-tagging dominant midfield oppositions he has. Like the Lions might just smother Port, and Port can't really get possession games going, but also the opposite could be true. You know, the Giants maybe tag him with Perryman, but he scored 120 against them last year, so who knows. Yeah, just Port's number 1 guy in there now, so he'll probably average at least 100, I would think. Priced at 88, half the comp owns him. I think it's better just to pick him as opposed to not, in case of, you know, his value just exploding. Dom Sheed, M5. This guy has dropped in ownership quite a lot since the preseason. It's very surprising because he scored 78 in a game he looked pretty awful, and Crows dominated the Eagles. So he's basically gone an 80 in a game where he looked off the pace just a little and was getting back into the scheme of things, you know. So he's priced at, from memory, 60-ish, 67, I think. And he's in his preseason game, he's saying I can score 10, 15 points more than that in a game where he looked not really trying that hard. So yeah, again, the Eagles come up against North, where the Bulldogs midfield just went absolutely disgustingly against. So he doesn't really have a better matchup not to pop off at the start of the year, which is what we want. We want these sort of low priced players to explode in value over the first few weeks of the season. So yeah, coming up against North is just like all these Eagles. They should be able to get their scores going. So yeah, I dropped him back in for Callahan, and yeah, I'm not too set on outside players. You know, like wingers, their scores can be incredibly erratic. So yeah, that's why Callahan's not exactly in my team right now. I mean, yeah, I don't see him getting the huge scores that people think he will get. Even in his preseason game, I watched it pretty closely, and he was getting really lucky, not because of, I don't know, he was in positions where the ball just landed on his chest. Like his first goal was like the ball just was kicked out and he was just in the right position. You know, there was just a lot of lucky stuff that got him to a really high score that I don't really think transitions into the real season. So he'll do okay. I don't know about Callahan, man. Over him I have Warple at M6 playing inside. Hopefully can get back to his earlier years where he was a pretty good at AFL fantasy scorer. You know, he's got the game as long as he's in the team. And Sam Mitchell doesn't care about his disposal efficiency that much because he's just a clearance expert as opposed to trying to hit targets. Coming up against Essendon, they looked awful against the Saints. He should be a guy that, you know, if he doesn't perform round one, he's gone, because you won't really get a better matchup than Essendon's, I don't know, current situation. They just look like they can hemorrhage points. So yeah, Warple, hoping for 90 plus average at best. You know, he's so cheap that he's got his role again. Like Jaeger Amira and Mitchell out is just, I think it's a lock that you should have. What's he owned at? 30%. You're getting a jump on 70% of the comp if he goes 80 plus. I mean, like even 75 plus if your other rookies don't exactly perform, like they go 50 or 60. So it's like, lock him in, guys. Lock in the Warpedo. M7 Ashcroft, I'm not going to say a single thing about him. Obvious pick. M8 Mackenzie, another obvious one. Maybe you can make an argument for not having him on the ground as opposed to Phillips or Hollins, but I think Mackenzie showed the best fantasy game out of all of them. Coming up against Essendon, he should be good. Very, very good as a rookie option at M8. And then, yeah, our bench, Phillips. I said in my other video, I had him in his debut season ahead of Powell. And he has a lot of Paddy Dow about his game, I think. He does not exactly show the ability to accumulate and score a lot of fantasy points just yet. That's why he's on my bench. Until I see it from him, he's on the bench. Obviously, he's best 22, getting a lot of midfield rotation, so he should be a good rookie. Hollins looks like an outside player that has a role in the team until, I don't know, if Sam Walsh comes in and he's gone, wouldn't surprise me. So yeah, we'll just see how he goes round one. He's named. He showed enough in a pretty wretched preseason performance against Sydney that he's better than half of the Blues. So yeah, we'll see how he goes. In the rucks, Ron Marshall, not really much I need to say about him. Most people playing the game that actually know what they're doing have him. How he's 45% owned. That's quite surprising. He should be like at least 60, I would think. And still, Ruck 2, Peter Laddams. This is a Galaxy Brain pick as long as Hickey is out of the side for as long as possible. So, Tom Hickey, if you're listening, mate, take your time, buddy. Just, you know, keep on just slowly working on your recovery until the buys, please. Like, I don't wish injuries upon players. Just take your time, buddy. Despite Laddams in the first few rounds playing, you know, Wits as a dominant ruck in terms of hit-outs for and against, he's just got such a spread about his game that I'm not concerned with his matchups. And Sydney are a dominant team, so he'll be able to get plenty of marks, tackles, you know. He's got an all-around modern ruck game, and he has history as the only ruck going like 100. So he's a huge play. Just as long as he's in the team for as long as possible, you know, as a sole ruck. I don't see McInerney getting a game. He's too raw and not good enough for Sydney's ruck role. And Laddams, he's a proven ruck option, not only fantasy wise, but at Port and Sydney. He's done it at Sydney already. So yeah, I'm quite surprised at how lowly he's owned. 1% owned. I just think this is the kind of move that gets you a jump on the competition, guys. So yeah, no need to lampoon it. I think if it pays off hugely. It's just about whether or not Tom Hickey's there when he's there. Yeah, so as I said before, ruck 3 Heath. I have had Samson Ryan, but I forgot, like round 1, Richmond are playing the first game. So if you vice captain Doherty, you can't emergency loophole him because he's already played. So if you haven't thought over that situation, might want to make an adjustment to someone playing later games like Heath. I mean, all these guys, small arguments for, like Ned Moyle is another one that I'm looking at. He doesn't have ruck forward status, but he becomes the main ruck if Witts goes down. Heath has ruck forward status. If Marshall goes down, maybe he comes in. It's probably going to be Campbell, but yeah, we'll see. Hayes is also off in the distance, but yeah, Heath for now. That could change, but you know, it's a ruck 3 not playing. Just if you want a vice captain option, you can't really go with Samson Ryan, who looks the most likely to play. Like, he looked pretty good in preseason, but you know. Dunkley, don't really need to say anything much about. He is a lock and a very good captain option pretty much the entire year. Besides, I think this first round, I'm just a little skeptical of Dunkley first game against Port. I'm pretty sure last year Brisbane played Port round 1 or something, and the Bulldogs played Port round 1, something along those lines, and he didn't score very well. But again, it's like, that's almost irrelevant. I just want to see what he does away in Adelaide, hostile crowd, against the Port Adelaide side that will want to really, 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 really win. Yeah, just a watch for the first round as a captain option, but obviously he's going to be just a lock at captain a lot of weeks against, you know, your corresponding teams that provide a lot of points, blah, blah, blah. I will say Cornelio is not here right now. I just can't squeeze him in anywhere. It would be for someone like Bont, I would think, and it's just, yeah, I had Cornelio at M3, but I think having Bont there is just a better play. Or McCluggage. That's where my situation with M3 is. It's either McCluggage, Bont, or Cornelio. I don't know if Cornelio early on gets those big scores. He might. It's just one I can't squeeze in, guys. I don't really, yeah, just can't squeeze him in. That's enough said. He's not in my team. Why am I discussing it? F2, Tim Taranto. Doesn't look like there's any problems in Richmond's game style. Just lock him in as a Brownlow Smoky, to be honest. He looks that good. And who else is going to get votes? Unless Tom Lynch scores like 6 goals in a game for Richmond. Or Dusty, even though he's playing forward. F3, Errol Goulden. His ownership is at 38% now, man. Had him before his preseason. Whatever. Everyone has him now, but whatever. He's going to be in the CBA rotation heaps. And lock him in. Done. Absolute machine. I can't believe people are fading this guy. He went 177 in an AFL tier game. It blows my mind that anyone can think about fading him, showing that kind of ceiling. He showed it last year with a 155, playing more on the forward line with no CBAs. Like, this guy is a pig in the making. He's an absolute machine. Blows my mind. He's not a Tom Phillips kind of operator. He's actually a good player coming into his prime at 20 years of age. Just he shows everything about breaking out. So it's just like, come on now. At F4, I have Darcy Cameron, just as a bit of Ladham's backup / replacement strategy. If Tom Hickey comes in earlier than I would like, I can just trade out Ladham's, get whoever in the forward line, or send Rosie to the forward line. Like, there's a lot of options I can do with Darcy Cameron at F4, and I think he will eventually, well, even maybe in round 1, have more time in the ruck than he did in the preseason, just because he's been building after a few hamstring niggles, etc. And I don't see 6'10", big MC Mason Cox staying in the team that long, because he's not that good. We will see, but I think Darcy Cameron's just going to be the main ruck pretty early on and go 100, like, he's capable of that as a sole ruck. So what's his ownership at? 10%. Ruck forward status with a guy like him, I think it's a really good pick, having him in your team, especially in the forward line. Last year, sorry, I'll just get my gum out of my mouth. I had Tim English in the forward line. I think he was around like a 10% ownership or something, and he absolutely smashed value with the ruck line and forward line. And having that ruck forward status allowed me to have Bruce on my bench at the start of the year, just knowing he would eventually be that number 1 ruck for the Giants. And it turned out it was important to have him on the bench. And yeah, even for like Jack Hayes, when he went down, he was just an easy guy to put in to the R2 spot with that ruck forward status, and he was a sole ruck. And it's sort of similar situations with him and Cameron this year. At some stage, I would hope I have Tim English in my team. Just saying that, like, if you're not going for value, I would think English still has a little bit of value in him. So it would be those two if you're just setting them for the whole year. Yeah, Darcy Cameron's sort of become a little slept on, I think. Mason Cox is just that big, tall American, obstruction to an elite fantasy operator. So 6'10", mate. Just think about putting the cap on and retiring. Your goggles are awesome, but just think about fading yourself, buddy. For the good of AFL fantasy operators with Darcy Cameron. F5, Toby McLean. He was at around 40%. Jesus. Prior to his preseason game, and he's at 14% now. There's two arguments for Toby McLean and why he's a good pick and a bad pick. His first half against North, and then his second half against North. His first half against North, he scored like a 9, and then his second half, he was like getting like a 45 or something. And I'm inclined to think he might have just been taking it a little easy. If he's named round 1, he's a guy that can go 100 without CBAs or whatever, and I see the Dogs doing pretty well at the start of the year, and basically the whole year. As long as he's in the team, he's a guy capable of scoring really well. No matter where he is, just hopefully he's pushing up the ground more. So yeah, his ownership dropping off a cliff is a sort of a reason to pick him. Like, again, like I said, his first half and second half have sort of put off more people than it's put on. It's hard to see how so many people can fade him just watching a single preseason game. And seeing him actually score well as well. So yeah, just thinking about McLean over the past few days, he's grown on me to the point where he's in my team again. F6 Shizel, he just looks like a star. If he's in the backline as well, like I said in the other video, he can score 100. He looks that good. So yeah, just lock in Shizel. Big HS, amazing initials. On the bench in a forward line, Philippou. I think he'll be in the team for just an extended period of time, considering the injury status of the Saints. And his scoring will probably be erratic. I might send him on the field, maybe 1 or 2 games where he might find himself playing against a team like Essendon or whoever's just giving up points to forwards. He's got a fantasy game if he's involved in the game, which he just won't be that much, despite being in the team at Saints, at least early. It looks like just playing quite deep forward, but yeah, just an elite kid. So who knows? Just there's all these questions about rookies exploding at points just randomly, like Rochelle last year. So yeah, who knows? Just one of those playing rookies on the bench. Pedler again. I've tossed with him being on my ground. Like, he looked pretty good against the Eagles in his limited game time. It's just like he's coming up against Giants round 1. I think he'll be named at like a half forward flank. And he looked pretty good. I'm interested to see how Pedler goes this year. Could make a big difference with the Crows' midfield to forward line connections. Desperately needed. So yeah, Pedler is there. And then Fergus Green at utility. Just another guy that's going to be playing most of the year. Might get an 80 every now and then. I've tossed and toyed with him being on the ground as well. Similar reasons to Pedler. Coming up against Essendon round 1. It's a kind of game where, you know, like a first game player puts everything down on the line and he gets like 4 goals, 4 tackles, 6 marks, and he has like an 80. Like, I could see that happening. It's a bit risky doing that. But that does happen, So yeah, that is my team. I'm going to go through and just talk about a few of the highly owned players, maybe up to, let's go, not just midfielders. How many? Let's go until below 10% owned. I'll just go through all these guys just as a little bit of extra discussion. Sincotta, if he's named, it doesn't look like he's going to be named. He would be in my team, and it may be a restructure needed to put him on ground because he's got a decent fantasy game about him. Itchy nose, man. Yeah, it just doesn't look like he'll be named. So 33%, probably drop a lot just before teams are named, but still at 33% for people paying attention. It seems quite high. I just don't think he's going to be named, considering those debut announcements. Next, we've got Dacos. Just watching that game against the Hawks, he looked very, very susceptible to a tag, and he might be playing more off the halfback than we suspected. Like, it looked like he was about to come into the midfield a lot more, but yeah, I'm not sure about Dacos. I don't know how much extra points, like how high he can improve his average this year is. He's priced at 85, 87, and it's like, how much higher can he go in that Collingwood midfield for one, where it's not exactly a points based midfield, it's get it out, get it to the forward line pretty directly. There's no messing around. He doesn't really tackle very well yet. Apparently my green screen just failed. You hate to see it. Rest in peace to the look at me. God damn. And that there's a VFX specialist right here. What an operator I currently am. Let's do this. Let's do this. Now that is a great look. That is a perfect look. You got your right side. You got me fading into my fantasy team. That is how connected I am to this bunch of fellas. But anyways, Davey next on the list. This is another guy. If he's named, I might consider him. He's a forward pocket. I don't really think he has a good fantasy game about him. Obviously he doesn't have a good fantasy game about him, or job security. I think like Tip and Woody might not be named round 1, and then in a week or two he's in for Davey. I mean, we'll see what happens there, but yeah, he showed he's a decent looking player for Essendon in that forward line, but he only scored a 60, putting in a lot of effort, so it's like I'm fading that for now. I don't see him being in my team at the start. So yeah, like 31% owned. This guy could be out in a week or two. Maybe not, but I just don't see him generating a lot of cash as a rookie. Laird next. He's actually dropped in like 5% over the past 24 hours in ownership, which is interesting. Yeah, it makes sense to pick him. Just doesn't. I think the argument is stronger that he doesn't have value. I'm gonna move my. This is obnoxious. I'm just gonna get nice and small for everyone. Nice small fella over on the left. Yeah, I don't see Laird, at least at the start of the year, going 130s all the time. He might. I did have him most of the preseason. Just attitude has changed over the past few days, looking for more value in my team. Just like understanding what previous Hat and car winners have done in the past. It's like it's never really you pick these high priced guys. Laird might be a black sheep, but yeah, fade that I'm sweating over. We'll see what he does round 1, whether it's the right decision or not. English, don't blame anyone for picking English. He makes a lot of sense. If I wasn't picking Laddams and Cameron, it would be sending Cameron to R2, and then my third decision would be English. He starts off the year against difficult opponents that maybe reduces him to like a 90 sort of region. I will be looking to get him sometime in the year. Just hopefully doesn't get going really early. Yeah, just he's a reasonable pick. I don't blame anyone for going there. Tom Green, I have questions about whether or not his contested game is just all that he's really going to do this year. The argument that he's going to break out to a 105, 110 plus guy, he needs to be getting marks, and obviously he tackles, but he's also not going to get these like huge 35 possession games that he's been showing in the preseason. I mean, coming up against the Crows, I feel like they're going to be restrictive to these Giants somewhat. I just think Kelly, as another Giants player, he has just such a better outside game that can make up for any like inside possession lost. But yeah, Tom Green's obviously a decent pick. I'm fading. Who knows with some of these guys whether it's the right decision or not. But I'm essentially picking Rosie over Green to start the year. I think Rosie's just, yeah, I'd say Rosie's probably just got a little bit more of a guarantee about him, more of an outside game to get those marks that you need, and the Giant style. I don't know if it's going to suit Tom Green fantasy wise. Like, he'll be a really good player this year. It's just he's more of a super coach player. I don't know. We'll see. Samson Ryan, I've said a lot of stuff about. Makes sense why people are picking him. But you can't get a VC loophole going at that ruck position if that's the case. So, not doing it. Cornelio, I've said a lot of stuff about. It makes sense to pick him. I don't. He's just someone I can't squeeze in, and we'll see how he goes at the start of the year. Whether or not he pops off or not, we won't know until the games have happened. Next up, we got Brayshaw, just another guy like Laird. Whether or not he provides you those 120s that you need from him at that price, especially round one, Ross Lyon won't want him getting off the chain at all. I think he will be, like, it's a decent chance this first round is his worst score of the year, just because Lions will want to shut him out of it so much, I think. But after that, the sky is possibly the limit for Brayshaw. It's just if he goes say a 60 because he gets hyper tagged, his value is just, even if he goes like a 120 next week, it's just he's already in a massive price decline. And so you can look to have him as one of your first upgrade targets, you know? That's my thinking at the very least. Sidus still in 20% of teams is a bit of a joke. Doesn't look like he'll be playing. I guess if he is named, which it looks unlikely, yeah, a bit of a goofy pick for people still holding him, 20%. Jordan Dawson, just don't see enough value in him being in the Chicago Bull music, as my team rightly and pridefully goes by. I just don't see him expanding that much on his average from last year, even though he can get those 120s going. He might cop a little bit more attention. If I was a coach, he'd be my first tag target. So yeah, it's just good pick. He's an absolute goat, but not starting the year with him. We'll just see how that goes. Finn Callahan, I've said a lot about. Obviously a value pick. I just don't think he has the upside a lot of people have, because of his outside role that can find himself. You can find yourself just missing quite a lot. Jeez, I swear like a billion spiders have bitten my nose or something. Itchy Nose FC is what I should change my team name to. That is a hilarious joke. Ha ha ha. McAndrew, 18%, bit of a joke if you're paying attention to the games, and yeah, I don't think he'll be there. So obviously, if he's there, maybe you pick him. He's behind Laddams, and once Hickey's back, he will be nowhere to be seen. So fade. Samster is a guy that I would definitely look to get in my team if he's named. Seems like a pretty decent chance of the sub role. Just there's a few players that weren't playing in preseason, like Walters, that are probably in front of him. He looked good, but yeah, if he's named, I'll probably try and squeeze him in somewhere. I don't know how, but I have to try and get him in. Clayton Oliver, like I said, I don't know. I don't think he has value this year, or any year to start off. Like, he's so consistently this 110 guy. It's like you can't really pick him because he's not going to go that much higher. And then I just never find myself upgrading to him because for some reason I feel like he's capable of going a 60 in a tag situation, you know, but obviously a gun. Just don't really want to pick him. Doesn't really hold value. He's like Brayshaw, but also I would rate Brayshaw above him. Roberts, another guy that I would look to squeeze in if he's named, but he looks like being the sub. I don't know, he's just he doesn't look like he's going to be in the 22 despite showing a lot. So yeah, he's a guy that you would mess around trying to get in if he's named. Looks capable of scoring in that beast of a Sydney side. So yeah, he's okay at 15%. It's just as long as he's in, which I don't think he is. So that's why he's not in my team. Horn Francis has been in my team there and back, you know, but 15% seems reasonable. He has a midfield role, but one, can't squeeze him in, and two, there's just a few just feelings I don't really see him getting like a huge time on ground, and he's having to deal with a lot of other midfielders in there. I don't know if he's got the game to get to an 80, which he might. I don't know. He's a decent pick, I think. I'm trying to make like an argument against him, but he's a good pick. I think he'll be 80 plus, to be honest. As long as he maintains that midfield role he had in the preseason. Sicily, decent pick. I just don't know if there's that much value in him to start the year. He is going to be doing a lot in that Hawk backline, but I don't think the Hawks are actually going to be that bad this year. So people arguing that the ball's always going to be down there, I don't. I'll say this: I don't think the Hawks will be wooden spooners. I actually think Essendon are closer than the Hawks, and then there's always some team that just absolutely drops off a cliff. Yeah, I don't see Sicily having too much of an ability to improve his average, but he's a good pick. He could improve an average. 15% seems about right with him. McGrath's gotten a lot of hype recently. I just don't see him getting like those 10 marks every game like he did against the Saints. Obviously a good player, but yeah, I don't know about McGrath. He's been in my team a little, but he's someone I kind of want to watch during the season just to see how Essendon, actually play. I just want to see more from him during the season. I don't really want to start with him despite having a decent preseason performance. Cowan makes sense. It's surprising his ownership's actually that low considering he's debuting. I just don't think he has job security to provide enough cash generation as an option. So yeah, it makes sense to pick him, but I'm not. Stewart, 12%, 13% ownership. He's a guy that maybe has value, but he's quite a strong target. Tom Tiz, but yeah, it makes sense to pick him against Collingwood. He could go off. Wouldn't blame anyone for picking him there. They think there's more upside than me. Yeah, I would be going there. We'll go 30%. You're taking the piss with that one. People who have gold, if he's not a placeholder, still there. Get him out. He's not playing and probably never will. Tom Mitchell, 11%. I was thinking about bringing him in despite not really ever being that keen on him because his ownership has just dropped so considerably. But, my God, my nose. Yeah, it just doesn't look like he has enough upside in that Collingwood midfield. He might. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets like a 110 his first game, but yeah, just a fade, to be honest. He's an interesting one to watch during the season. We'll see how he goes. What's this guy? Is it Michael? Matthew Johnson. Doesn't look like he'll be starting 22, so makes sense not for him to be in your team as a rookie. 11%. Come on, guys. Took Miller, 11%. Another come on, guys. That is someone you shouldn't be starting the season with, considering his lack of preseason the past few weeks. He'll be trying to get back into fitness. You know, it's very unlikely he'll come out scoring really well. He does have elite fitness conditioning, so maybe he does, but Yeah, passing on Took. Despite him being a gun, he's just someone you want to bring in later in the season. Jonesy of the Liam variety. Bit of a meme, this guy. Makes sense that he's around 10% owned. He'll be best 22, but again, he's a lockdown defender and erratic scores that could go from 30. Despite being in a dominant team, he only got 88, which looks like his possible ceiling. And 88 against Melbourne looks very far away. This guy could go from 20 to 30, and at best you would think he's going like a 50, maybe 60 average. It's just, I don't even see that. And priced overtly expensive, pass for me. But if you're a big fan of Jonesy, get him in if you want to self-destruct your team. Jack Sinclair, extremely pricey, 10%. Makes sense. He was a gun last year. I see him falling this year in a more non-magnetic to the ball role. It looks like Wanganeen Malira is sort of occupying a bit of that game that Sinclair had last year. So he's a fade. Maybe you want to pick him up later in the year, but who knows? I don't think he'll be averaging 103 again. And last guy in this 10% ownership bracket, Jack Steele. I would say there's an argument about him being incredibly lowly owned. Bit of a pot at that price as a premium. But yeah, I just don't see him having huge upside in this Saints team. But again, this is another guy you want to watch during the season just to see what his role is, whether or not he can get those marks and tackles that pumps him up. He could be a really good pick. It's just hard to know, and at that price, you need him to be beast moding, which he probably will, just like the Brayshaws and Olivers and Lairds. It's just whether or not he has enough value, and at that price, I don't think he does. So I don't want to start the season with him. Honestly, Darcy's a pretty relevant guy, so I'll talk about him and Brayshaw, and then I'll be done. Darcy is a decent pick at Ruck 2. I just don't see him having a huge upside with Jackson in the team. It's just like a 20% of the game, 20, 30, 40, who knows with Jackson. Percent of the game he won't be having those ruck hit outs. And he's capable of going missing and also getting injured. And at that price, you're sort of thinking to yourself that you're going to have him the whole year. And I would rather just wait for a decent opportunity to grab English, who I think has 10, 20 points above his average at the end of the year. So, yeah, it's not somewhere I would like to go. He's too much of that middle range of rucks that you would want to avoid. Sort of like Wits, he might improve as well. It's just, I think it's English or no one, to be honest. We'll see how the season goes. It's just pass. And Brayshaw is another guy, 10%. He looks like sort of continuing that role from last year. Whether or not he has any value, I don't think he does. I don't think he's not. If he's in the midfield, that's okay. He's a guy that makes sense to pick, but also is pretty expensive and has the capability. If he doesn't go, like a lot of content creators are saying, the Dogs provide heaps of points for defenders. If he doesn't go big this round, it's just, he's not primed for a good year. I don't trust Brayshaw. It's in my gut. I don't really trust Angus. So yeah, that's it. Let's do a random guy pick as my last one to talk about. There's some sort of relevance. Quick note, Darcy Fogarty's winning the Coleman. Xavier Dersma, not enough of an inside role to pick him. Let's go with whoever this guy is right here. De Koning, no. Who's the most relevant player? I think Toby Green will be alright this year. Lycett. Let's go with Lycett. Lycett is, how do I say this? Someone you shouldn't pick this year. Goodbye.